Welcome to the Neurodiverse Astrologer, my podcast where we talk about astrology and neurodiversity and how they come together. And I have amazing guests that join me and teach me all about the brain and astrology. So fantastic. So I have Jayeanne here again because we had such a wonderful time last time, right?
We had so much fun.
We
I
had so
loved
much
it.
fun.
I loved chatting with you, and we could have gone on for another hour easily. And so that's
Absolutely.
why we had to do this again.
Absolutely. And you will be on many more times for sure. Because your knowledge of the brain blows my mind. Like you know the brain. And
I
I
used to
could know.
dissect brains like literally, right?
There you go.
I had
Right?
a job where I took brains out and put them in a dish from fruit flies. So it wasn't like I wasn't dissecting like human brains, but I had to have a good bit of neuroscience under my belt to be able to do that. Um, anyways, that's not even what we're talking about. I
No,
love talking about the nerves. I love talking about the nervous system. I grew up in chiropractor world land. Like we lived at the chiropractor or we lived at church. So that was like my whole life growing up. And so I went to chiropractic school and all of that. So like anything having to do with the nervous system, like I really believe that the nervous system is the key to finding these resolving stress and like also like finally feeling like yourself.
absolutely.
So we were talking before we recorded, and I was like, Alicia, you've got to hit record and we got to talk about this because I created a hippocampus session, which originally was supposed to be a short-term memory session and just like let's clear out anything resistance to short-term memory. And whenever I work with the brain energetically, there's always an like you have the physical structure, there is an energetic match to it. So it is like you have the energy of that thing, and it's in that part of the system, right? And not in the physical structure, but it affects the physical structure. That's where we have these energetic blockages, is in the energetic system. That
Right.
is a perfect match. And so when we are doing any of this work, I will sometimes see like one time I saw for somebody a phantom eighth cervical vertebra, right? And it was like, this has been messing with you this whole time. So we just removed the extra energy. Anyways, my point is we did a hippocampus session. I could just
Yeah.
talk forever. You're still good at holding space for things that I could just talk forever about. And so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I find it fascinating. So it's all good.
I did this hippocampus session. It was supposed to be a short-term memory session. And I got halfway through it and I just had started on the hippocampus and I was like, this is so much bigger than short-term memory. Holy crap. I think I found like, because there's so much sensory processing that goes into the hippocampus. There's so much gatekeeping, like you won't even see stuff that's in front of you that goes into the, and like then there's also like a lot of executive function and
Right.
time awareness, facial recognition all route through the hippocampus. And
Right.
I was like, we have to clear this whole organ because everybody deserves to feel like themselves. And anyways, I made Alicia watch it.
I made it through a quarter of it and I was like shaking. And I was like, I can't. It was so intense, like beautifully intense. And I almost felt like my body said, this is all you can handle right now. And I even had what's going on, like I talked to you about, I even have what's going on in the stars right now. We have an interesting square between Chiron and the sun and Mars. And it's so like that's helping me. And anyway, so I did like I'm trying to remember exactly. I think I got to like C3, it's C3.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Remember. But and I was telling you I was having like massive resistance through most of the session and like anger was just coming up and I'm like, what is this? Like this is crazy. And anyway, so my body said, okay, like you need to be done now because you're just like totally zoning and you're angry and because like these kind of energy sessions can be so intense that we do have to take breaks and we have to do them multiple times. Like you understand that.
Yeah.
So I listened to my body, I fell asleep and I hit the pillow hard and I slept
Mm.
straight through the night. And then this morning, I knew I was supposed to do some meditation and I usually do it in the bathtub. That's my sensory place. That's my safe place. I have essential oils, and I just make a whole beautiful environment for me to just process and feel safe. Anyway, as I was like really tuning in and I was like, what is going on here? I could still not reach it. There was somebody like protector, in the internal family system, the protector was just like blocking me. And I'm like, come on, like there's something here we need to look at for me to have this conversation with you. I truly feel like I had to get to this point. So, long story short, eventually, as I was driving, because like sometimes you just have to turn your brain off and it will come to you. So, just in the mundane, you find the clarity. That's what I learned a lot. And so I was just driving, and all of a sudden, boom, it hit me. And I was like, okay, I have this deep, deep belief that systems fail me. And I mean, I could go on and on about different systems in this world that just fail me. The family system, the nervous system, the school system, the medical system. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And I'm just angsty and I'm just angry about it. And so just like sitting there, like obviously there's imperfect systems, and my nervous system and my brain is definitely one of those. And I thought, well, don't I want to heal? Like, don't I want to have a better functioning brain? Of course I do. And then there's this part of me that's like, but then they'll win. And we were talking about that. And it's like, then they'll win. Well, what does that mean exactly? And it's a matter of people telling me that my brain is broken or it doesn't work the right way. And I'm not enough. Blah. There it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I grew up in deaf culture, and there is a certain amount of desire and intent to maintain that culture. So many times people in deaf culture will intentionally marry genetically deaf people so that they can have children in deaf culture, right? There's a question of whether that's ethical or not or whatever. It's not really my place to judge. I get why it happens, right? And so we're seeing a similarity with autism culture and a concern of, do we want to have things that just disrupt our lives as a way of life, right? And it's not about like being normal or neurotypical. It's not about whatever, fighting the stigma or accepting the stigma. It is about just functioning on a day-to-day life schedule and being able to work with your own body and have it work the way you want it to work rather than how somebody else wants it to work. And I'm with my own life journey, I had to heal just to function properly, regardless of whether I had to function inside the system. I had to just like, okay, I need to remember to take a bath because I need to be clean, period, right? I
Mm-hmm.
have to pay my bills. Like that is not a systemic problem other than like what we're talking about was that's not what we're not talking about the systemic, like just the action of doing it or going to a test on time or remembering that we have a test at all to take if we're in school. It's not about like conformity. It's about functioning appropriately. And what I truly believe with any neurodivergence, I actually believe, and this is going to sound a little bit like weird, but I do believe that any kind of neurological issue is a mismatch between the spiritual consciousness and the physical body. Okay.
Okay.
So the more that you adjust, and the nerves, it's called neuroplasticity for a reason. It can change. Nerves, brain matter, all has the ability to change and shift. And it's not about conforming, it's about fully being yourself entirely.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. And so one of the things, especially when I'm working with my daughter, is her style of autism is very different than like classical autism. And the way that I see it is that her consciousness is so much and so big that it just does not fit her nervous system. So now we're at an evolutionary point.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
evolutionary points aren't about steady eddy growth, they're about massive expansive growth
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly do believe a large portion of neurodivergence is on that level, and that we're doing evolution at a rapid rate. And we see this in the human evolution series in different points in time. When humans change, it isn't like, it is like overnight, right? It's over like 3, 4, 5 generations, maybe 10, but it's not like gently over the course. It is like you have a baby and you have now a weird baby. Okay. And now you have to go, okay, what's going on with this baby?
Right.
It's a different level. It's a growth and a different level. So but also finding the ability to function on a day-to-day, because you're still a person, right? With person things to do.
I do. Yeah. I'm a
It's not,
mother. I need my brain.
yes. Yes, we all need the brain to function. So now we're like retrofitting. That's all it is.
Right. Yeah, and I identify with that. My consciousness, I feel, is bigger than my brain, can
Yes.
even process. So I do want to have it be at full capacity, but I still don't think it would be enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when the reason why I say this is two things. One, every single mom I've talked to who has an autistic child says, I'm pretty sure my kid is psychic. And it's like, what is this? Because
Hmm.
there's some sort of like, not, they're communicating. It's just not with voice, or it's different. And number two, when I give my daughter essential amino acids, her her capabilities go hog wild. And this is, I'm directly feeding the brain. And so her brain just needs to grow even faster than like what is normal, right?
Okay. It just needs to grow
So
faster. Okay.
yeah. And so she's making way other connections that we are probably just not measuring when
That
we're
makes sense.
measuring with development. Anyways, that's my like hypothesis. I don't have anything to back it up other than like some of these things that I've seen. But yeah, anyways, you are not alone. Everybody, I think a lot of people feel this way. And it's like, well, I just don't want somebody, I don't want to feel like I'm broken and I need to be fixed.
Yes.
And that's true across any kind of healing.
Right.
Any kind of healing. It's like, I don't want to say I'm broken, because I'm not. I have this like stuff that hurts. So let's just heal it so you can be yourself.
Yeah. And that makes a lot more sense because I think there's that part of me that just doesn't that's really angsty about conforming, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think you hit the nail right on the head of no, I don't need to just not heal my brain to make a point. I want to be a better person. Therefore, I want to function better. I want to be healthy. Like that is a North Star for me. Like that's I want to be a healthy person, mind, body, and spirit. I mean, that's why I do what I do, so I can be a healthy person. So it's just interesting how your session brought out this really intense shadow side of myself that I was like, oh, we're deeply wounded. We're deeply wounded by not fitting the system, by not
Mm.
by feeling um like it just doesn't work for me. Therefore, it's hopeless. It's a hopeless situation. That's how it felt too. It's like hopeless. I guess that's the best way to describe
Yeah. Hopelessness is one of the biggest emotions that we forget to sit with. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, that it was a hopelessness. That is so key in any kind of massive growth process, that when we sit with hopelessness, and instead of trying to mask it by shifting into hope, mask it by shifting into the relief of hopelessness. And not mask it at all, actually, but
it. But
stepping
feel it.
into that feeling of relief from hopelessness, and
Mhm.
decreasing our hopelessness quotient, instead of trying to, because once we step into hope, it can very easily become spiritual bypass.
Mhm.
Anyways, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
I was thinking about how, and I think that's what kicked in the most when you were talking about the social memories. When you were talking in the
Mm,
session, we were talking about social memories and the trauma we experience through our social interactions. That's a very, very common experience for neurodivergent people. Not only just neurodivergent, but especially socially, because we feel so hopeless about social interaction, understanding people, understanding ourselves, and communication and connection. It feels hopeless sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, that rejection sensitivity is awful, awful,
Yeah.
so awful. Mm-hmm.
It makes me
Yeah.
wonder. It makes me wonder if rejection sensitivity might be. Do you think it's attached to the hippocampus at all because of like the memory?
Yeah. So the hippocampus gets to choose which signals are the priority,
Hmm.
right? And so if you have a social interaction and you just felt like really bad and it didn't go well, right? I tell all the time this story of I I said something like I was when I was dissecting flies, the person sitting next to me, we were talking about ergonomics and all this stuff, and I was like, humans need movement. Like there is no like perfect positioning because humans need movement. And the person sitting next to me just like stared at me blankly. And I was like, well, that was the dumbest thing I've ever said, clearly. Right. And so like that just really like came up for me again and again and again. It was like, don't say something dumb because people are going to look at you with a blank face. And clearly that means you're stupid and dumb and wrong. And so what happens on the hippocampus very often is that it chooses that reaction and amplifies it. And so it chooses which ones are the highest priority and then amplifies the ones that are the highest priority. And then it goes into the long term memory and pulls out similar examples.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that just and reinforce your belief
Yes.
system, and it's painful. Yeah.
And this is why healing is so important because had I not been healing actively, like aggressively healing my emotional state at that time, I would have just felt bad forever. And I would not have noticed when she came back to me 2 weeks later and said, when you said that about ergonomics, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. And I was like,
Of course.
what?
Well, that's the thing, because she was in shock. Because, like,
She was in shock.
yeah, instead of just annoyed or bored or whatever.
But that can all look the same
It
depending on the
can.
person,
Right.
right?
Exactly. That's why social cues are so hard. They're so hard because they look so similar. And we just kind of go to our library of, okay, I see this facial expression. Their eyebrows are doing this, their eyes are doing this, their mouth is doing this, their body's doing this. Therefore, they feel this way. And it's not A plus B equals C. It's just
No,
not.
it's
So
not.
it's
And guess
super
where
frustrating.
we process that information is
Hippocampus.
in hippocampus.
That
So
makes
it's
so much
those
sense.
all that facial stuff. So I was like, when I started reading about it, I was like so shocked because I was like, I think I found, first of all, I found like probably the most effective brain organ to be working healing on because a small change can result in a massive shift in the rest of your life,
Yeah.
just in the hippocampus.
Yeah.
And second of all, especially because where it processed it, how it processes sensory information, like if there is a decrease of neural activity in certain parts of the hippocampus, it is going to impact the way that we understand and amplify all sensory information. Even though those pieces of sensory information are processed in different parts of the brain, it's going to create an overwhelm and overstimulation if there's not enough hippocampal activity.
Right.
Crazy.
Right.
That just like blew my mind. I was like, okay, I'm going to work with my child's hippocampus as much as possible so that her sensory stuff will not hinder her from learning the current vernacular of language, which may eventually evolve into telepathy, but needs to include verbal communication today. Right.
Well, we just need to stay a little more grounded. Yes, I
Yes.
agree. Yeah, I can totally my all my kids have a different language, and I am psychic and I do pick it
Yeah.
up, and they still need to function in this world.
Yeah.
I totally
Yeah.
agree with you.
So, yeah, but spatial awareness
Yes.
lives in the hippocampus. Time awareness in the hippocampus.
I don't know anything about time blindness.
Well, yeah, you don't see it because you don't, so you don't know.
Time doesn't exist. What? What?
Time doesn't exist. Again, this in like a fifth dimensional reality, time is irrelevant,
It is.
right?
And you can bend it. I've done it.
And you can bend it. So that's why it's like I've more evidence to like support my belief that neurodivergent people are just on a different plane and like a greater level of consciousness than ever before.
Yeah. And we just don't know what to do with it. It's so expansive. And yeah, that's really affirming. Thank you. I agree with that.
So we have time, we have social cues in the hippocampus, and we have short-term memory. And short-term memory is the one thing that everybody touts about the hippocampus, and like that's the function, but it has so many more pieces.
Absolutely.
The biggest thing too is the gatekeeping.
Okay, tell me about
Gatekeeping
that.
is, yeah. So gatekeeping is the ability to even perceive something new. Your brain has a map of your whole house, right? So say you move that plant somewhere else, you'd go, oh, that plant is moved. Ta-da. But say a million dollars appeared on that table, you may not even process that. Like you may not even register that it's there.
Uh-huh.
So when people talk about like shifting from lack consciousness, we're talking about moving that gatekeeper's ability to open up just a little bit wider because now we're seeing new opportunities. The concern with opening that too wide is I'm going to get overwhelmed. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. So overstimulation is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, like, these things are entering my environment and I can't process it fast enough because it's just we pick up on everything and the sensitivity. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I'm going to shut that down to a very small window so that I can process it, especially because I want to process it in a very deep and meaningful way
Mm-hmm.
that is 100% accurate, right? That is a concern too, is if I'm not perfectly accurate,
Don't know me.
then I'm wrong and bad and terrible.
Oh, you don't know me. Oh gosh, yeah. I'm
So
just
when we're
processing
not
so
feeling
much
that,
and just drinking water because I could just
clearing and clearing and clearing and clearing, yes. When we
fantastic.
can have more clarity around our sensory processing, we can even fathom the idea of opening the gates a little bit and feeling a little bit more open to new things. So that's why, and when we talk about like working with people with autism or any other kind of sensory processing stuff, we are like focusing on that sensory stuff because we need to regulate sensory before we can start new things, before we can even fathom new things. And and that's why I love energy work because you can just ask for your brain to be rewired in the perfect way for you. Not like the way that the system wants it to be wired, not like the way your mom wishes you would be, but the perfect way for you. And ask and you receive, right? You get it. It happens right away. The energetic structure shifts immediately. And then the neurons kind of settle into that eventually. So having requesting an increase in activity in the hippocampus will help with the sensory processing issues because it'll give that more, you have more connection so that way the sensory information comes in and it's not like there's a backlog. And that's where we get a lot of like overwhelm and overload, is when we have a backlog of sensory information and then we go, I can't deal with any of this.
Yeah, it's called delayed processing. And it's definitely part of autism is delayed processing. Someone will say something to me and I might process it like a couple minutes later or even a day later. It just depends. So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Or like well, sometimes you can use it to your benefit too. Like I will be doing something else and I'll hear somebody say something, but there's like a short time recorder in my mind that's like sits there and I go, okay, now I can listen to that, right? Like now I can pay attention to that thing. And so if
That's a good point.
you can work with it, then you can work with it. Cool. But if it's too many things at once, it's like, okay, let's find out how we can sort. And that's the biggest thing is that sorting what's the priority on the sensory information. Yeah. Anyways, these are just things that I have like obsessed about and
It's
researched
amazing.
intensely.
It's amazing. So, have you done this work on your daughter?
I have now worked on her hippocampus. What I worked on was her throat chakra because that was the priority at the time.
Got it.
And it was very interesting because there's a lot of perception that she couldn't understand me or I couldn't tell if she could understand me.
Hmm.
But I would do my energy work processing and I would just say, oh, okay, so 18 months old, what was going on when you were 18 months old? And she just immediately started screaming, crying. And I was like, okay, so we're going to have a conversation about that. And then meanwhile, she's just like
I love it.
tooling around, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, what was happening around 18 months old? And she screams and crying. Like some part of
Some
her
part of
knew
her
what I was saying.
recognized. I love that. It's interesting because I have tried to do energy work, intuitive healing, whatever, on my kids. And most of the time I get a no, like I'm not interested. Like their spirit tells me
Yeah.
no, flat out. So
Yeah.
is that common?
That's interesting. So there was a long time where I was like, oh, I really should do this. Maybe it'll help, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, I don't feel like it. Um, right. And that's
Maybe
the
that's
same
it.
thing.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
But it was from me, right? Like I was like, whatever, it's fine. Like, and there was like sort of a playing it out in my mind, like, yeah, you're gonna do all this work and then nothing's gonna come of it. Like that was kind of what it was going on there.
Oh, okay.
The the turning point was, I was putting her in the pool every day, and she started gaining momentum um, in her sensory stuff, and she started gaining momentum in some of her developmental stuff because I was putting her in the pool every day. And that is like a huge thing because she's got a lot of like that deep tissue sensory that she needs. So she does the head banging and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So putting her in the pool, it pushes on every part of you all at once. And so that was a huge thing for her. And so I was able to do that session over the summer because her sensory was completed. She was gaining momentum, and I started using the essential amino acids, and so her brain, mind, everything was being fed very well. And so then it was okay. The little like edge is gonna be the energy work. And the minute I did that, she started putting together complex sounds.
Okay.
Huge difference. Huge difference. Pool, she started babbling, she started doing little tiny fine motor skills. And then, yeah, she started putting together complex sounds and making sounds that sound more like words.
Wow.
But I
That's
couldn't
really cool.
have, it was cool. That'll make you cry, you know, because it's
Yeah.
like, thank
Yeah.
you I'm not
Just
crazy.
just
You
the
are
small
absorbing
things.
things.
Yes, for sure. Wow.
Yeah. Anyways, I could just talk for days and days on this because
You're
I
good.
want moms to know like there's a lot you can do, and it feels very lonely. It feels very lonely to have to be a parent of a child with any kind of developmental delay,
Hmm.
and to feel like I want the best for my kid, and I want them to like feel confident in their own self and in their own body, and I don't know how to help them. And so like when she cries when she gets hurt, that was huge for me because she would hit her head and she wouldn't like she would just keep on trucking.
Yeah.
And that was like, okay, this is wrong. There's something
Yeah.
wrong here.
Yeah, like because safety for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I always say like her two favorite things or sharp objects in traffic.
Sounds like my daughter. They have no
Hi, the
sense of
traffic,
safety.
please.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah, so that the energy work was just that little extra bit. I don't think that her experience is the only way, though, right? I think
Mhm.
for a lot of kids, the physical like stuff is important, but maybe the energetic work is the top priority,
Okay.
right? So you have the things they do in OT, right? Neurological training, right?
Mhm.
Then you have energetic stuff, you have nutritional stuff,
Right.
and then just like a generalized feeling of safety.
Right.
And if those things aren't aligned in the right order at the right time, like you're not going to get anywhere. And so working with all of the pieces at once is too much, but you've got to find a way to prioritize and see what's like in her body's top priority.
Oh,
And
I love this. I love this so much. Where have you been all my life? Oh my gosh. We've been friends for a while and I had no idea that this was in you, by the way. Um,
you.
that's beautiful. Like, do you have a course for moms?
Oh my gosh. I don't. I have thought about it. I have deeply thought of this because first of all, I am of all the moms in the world, I am one of the newest at this. But also I have a unique set of skills and a unique set of gifts that I have that can help other moms who have been even doing this for a long time. And so I'm thinking about it. Right now, I
I
have
love it.
a different course that I'm launching, but I think probably mid next year is when I'm thinking about this type of course. Because yes, you're right. I have thought about it. Do not. I'm not kidding.
Oh my
Thank you.
gosh, yeah, I'm all for it because I agree with you. I think that's where, for me, energy work has kind of failed me because
Mm,
there's an order of operations. And
yes.
you hit the nose, you hit the nail right there. It's like, you have to get the nutrition and because like I found myself when I discovered my gifts in energy healing, when I discovered that I could visually see what was going on in my body and feel, see the emotions, all that. I just focused completely on that.
Hmm.
And then all those other steps were just kind of skipped. And so like yes, there was progression, there was healing, but not to the extent that I'd seen so many other people experience it.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
100%. And this is particularly true with because people who are neurodivergent often have gut issues
Mm-hmm.
as well. So finding ways to receive the nutrition, even if you're eating it, actually absorbing it may be a different story. And so finding ways to put the nutrition into your body in a way that the body can actually absorb and use it,
Mm-hmm.
that's what changes things as well. And again, it has to be super personalized.
Yes, absolutely. I just discovered that I have IBS and
Mm,
I am on a low FODMAP diet.
yeah.
Do most people know what that is? No. But I know that with certain foods, my body just like it just ferments. It's not digesting. And so I'm not absorbing. And that has been huge in my brain health is just my gut. And I've always known that. But for some reason, I just felt like, oh, my brain, it's just emotional and energy. That's all I've been focusing on. So thank you, like for reminding me,
Mm,
no, there's other the word steps, there's other categories. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, pillars.
yeah.
Pillars to
Yeah.
help,
No, that's true.
you know. Gosh, this answers so many questions. This is just wonderful. Yeah, like if you ever decide to do this course, like I'm hugely interested because this is, I think, where I kept getting stuck. And maybe that's why I kept getting a no, because I have to get the gut in, I have to work on the brain health first, or the emotion, the safety even. Like I love that you even incorporated just the emotional and physical feeling of safety and spiritual feeling of safety.
Yeah.
So fantastic. Love it.
Yeah. Thank you. It's so fun to talk about. So, anyways, though, yeah, just kind of to recap, hippocampus is important if you're doing energy work or if you have neurodivergent stuff. And
Yeah.
more than likely, if you're drawn to energy work, you might have some neurodivergent stuff going on.
Oh, absolutely. They are definitely, I see more and more hand in hand. Absolutely.
And the hippocampus is kind of the key to both of those things, whether you're classified or identified as neurodivergent or not. Hippocampus is key to all of these different types of processing and being able to even see opportunity without getting overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
and being present with people, right? Like having the ability to even be present with others and feel safe. So hippocampus has a lot to do with that. But also you've got to do all of the things to take care of your whole body because we don't live in an ethereal world. We live in a physical world.
Dang
And we
it.
have to address the physical body. I know, but you did choose to come here.
We did. We chose the mortal experience, but it's sometimes I'm like, why?
I know, 100%. It's like, do I need to stay? Yes.
Yes. It's so much more fun up here. So much
Mm-hmm.
more fun in energy world.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like you can see, unicorns and all stuff. Like, yeah. And it's like, well, they're not real. Well, they're real. They're just not exactly embodied. Well, they could be.
Oh my gosh, I love you. Oh, this is so fun. Okay, so tell us about your course because now people are going to need to know about it because it's really fantastic. I mean, like I said, I've only been through a quarter of it because it was deep. It was deep for me.
Yeah. So it is a two-part, very short course compared to my other stuff. I like to go very deep, but we clear out every single section of the hippocampus. And so there's two videos. The first video goes over what is the hippocampus, what does it process, what does it do, how is it kind of implicated in all of this stuff that we're talking about. The second half is the actual clearing, and we go all the way to, no, I forgot the name of the structure, but we go like pretty far out from the hippocampus proper to clear the brain structures that surround the hippocampus.
Mhm.
And then on the second video, we clear the structures inside the hippocampus. That second video is even more intense than the first. Um, and I got halfway through because I had recorded it live and I got halfway through and I was like, I'm tired. I'm gonna have to finish this later. And it's been an hour and I'm sure you're tired. So we're gonna go do that. Um, but yeah, it's $25. It's not hugely expensive.
Oh my
I
gosh,
wanted it to
no, not
be
at all.
accessible to anyone. So
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. So, what I also really appreciate about you, again, is I feel a sense of safety and ethics with the work that you do, Jay. Like,
thank you.
thank you for that because I have found that that's not always priority. Order of operations and ethics and doing it safely. I think that there's a component of energy work that definitely needs to have that masculine that container. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And actually, this is a very strong intention that started probably, what is it, 2024? So like 12, 13 years ago, when I was going through this process of clearing out everything in my life and changing my food and doing all the things, I was grasping for straws. And when you go through massive changes like that, it feels like you're living in a washing machine. And it's like, I don't know which way is up. I don't know what, because you're changing your beliefs.
Yes.
You're changing your beliefs, and it was that you identified as your beliefs being truth and
Mhm.
the only truth that's possible, and your existence was predicated on your beliefs being true.
Of course.
And now when you make those changes and you start changing beliefs, you have to reorient to something else. And I was like, okay, I get that I have to let go of these beliefs. Like, I'm only good enough if, people in my church say I'm good enough, right? Like I'm predicating my self-worth on someone else's opinion. Like that's not good. I get that that's not a good thing for me.
Mhm.
What is true? And it came through almost audibly. And it was, there are only two truths: love and healing. And that is it. And so everything I do starts with unconditional love and is encased in unconditional love. And for people who have like a brain script on that and have a meaning to that, the sound of that phrase, it's love without conditions, love without strings, love that you don't have to do anything to deserve. And that is it. There is nothing else. Everything else is frivolities. Everything else is for fun. Um, but that is all that is the guiding. And for every healing thing that I do, it is just from a space of unconditional love and with the intention of healing and
Mhm.
without, not harming, not destruction, even though it
Right.
feels a little
Do no
intense.
harm. And that's the thing is like, whoa, like I did have resistance, but yeah, that's the do no harm. Like you are being very cautious in your work. I can tell.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I want to recognize that because it's rare. I find it's rare in energy work. So
Thank you. Well,
you're
thank you,
very
Alicia.
welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you for being here again. I will absolutely have you on. Um, I'm sure we'll find something to talk about. Probably the divine feminine because, that's my jam too.
Well,
But
and I just started a podcast about that too.
yes,
So
you did. So,
I'd love to talk about the divine feminine with you. Yes.
I would love that so much, so much. Okay, well, I will post her links below. And yeah, this was wonderful.
I love
Okay,
it. Thank you so much, Alicia.
thank
Have,
you.
have a good one.